Hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar Adventures in Crowdsourcing, Business Case for Crowdsourced Data. My name is Kevin Vita, and I'll be helping with facilitating today's webinar. The webinar is sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration and hosted by the National Operations Center of Excellence, also known as NOCO. As a quick reminder, if you don't know already, at NOCO, we offer a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. On the bottom right side of your screen, you can see a box called Useful Links. You can browse through those links for TSMO resources and news. Previous webinar recordings and case studies can be accessed from there as well. Now I'll cover a few logistics for today's webinar. We are recording this webinar, and the recording, along with the presentation slides, will be available through the on-demand learning section of NOCO's website. All the attendees' phones are on listen-only mode by default, but we'd like you to stay engaged by using the question and discussion pod for comments and questions or discussing today's weather. We have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions, we encourage all of you to enter them in the questions pod as they come to your mind at any time. The questions will be read out loud one at a time by the moderator, and our presenters will answer each question. So that's all I have, and with that, I'll hand it over to our moderator for today's session, Ralph Volpe, to start us off.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, or for some, good morning. I'm Ralph Volpe, your moderator and host, and the Federal Highway Administration Everyday Counts 5 Crowdsourcing for Operations co-lead. In addition to Kevin Vita, Shelley Shaw of AEM will also help with the facilitation. So let me welcome you to the 10th Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar. This webinar is a departure from the norm in two big ways. As you may recall, the FHWA EDC-5 program began in January of 2019 and concludes in December of this year. Our program goal was to increase the number of agencies that use crowdsourced data to better operate the transportation system. We assessed the FHWA program performance towards this goal by measuring the number of agencies that advance in their self-reported capability maturity. We've done quite well, helping 19 states advance one or more levels in their use of crowdsourced data, and we expect this number to rise to the mid-20s by the end of December 2020. And with the end of EDC-5 will come the end of the EDC-5 Crowdsourcing and Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar series. But the big news, if you haven't heard already, is that crowdsourcing will continue as an EDC-6 innovation with a focus on deepening crowdsourcing routes to yield a more bountiful crop of benefits across operations strategies. We will also make more targeted efforts to support regional and local agency access and use of crowdsourced data through EDC-6. Thus, if you're as sad to see the EDC-5 Adventures in Crowdsourcing series end, you'll be happy to learn that the EDC-6 Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinars will soon begin, maybe even as early as December 2020. And as I mentioned, today is not a typical Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar. Instead of the typical 3 15-minute presentations we have today, 7 5-minute presentations in a rapid-fire format. We have brought together 7 impressive individuals. Each has helped champion positive change in their agencies through crowdsourced data. Each presenter will highlight their agency's crowdsourced data uses, the associated benefits and costs, and how they were able to make the business case for crowdsourcing. In the spirit of the rapid-fire format, I will provide a rapid-fire introduction in advance of each presentation. Be sure to ask questions for our presenters through the chat box. We have budgeted a good 30 minutes to dive deeper with questions at the close of the presentations. We will also have trivia questions, so be sure to pay close attention to the presentations. So with that, let me introduce our first presenter. Ashley Booster. Ashley is a traffic liaison engineer at the Missouri DOT and oversees statewide initiatives for transportation systems management and operations, otherwise known as TSMO. So with that, over to you, Ashley.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction, Ralph, and thank you all for extending the invite to me to present today. So real quickly, rapid fire, I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of a business case that we have for Missouri on crowdsourced data to improve incident management and more. So just real quickly, the story behind all of this. So what you see there on the lower right-hand corner is just a snapshot of our cover of our strategic highway safety plan that just got unveiled this year. And the chart that you see there is just a telling story of where we stand on the number of fatalities on our roadway. So fortunately, you can see the last couple of years through 2019, we've been decreasing the total number of fatalities on our roadways, but our 5-year trend has been increasing. And like many other states out there, in 2020, our fatalities are year-to-date are on an increase compared to last year. And a snapshot, that some quotes that I have there in highlighted in yellow came from our strategic highway safety plan. It talks about just distracted driving in general, that perhaps no behavior on our roadway has become more alarming than distracted driving. And cell phone related crashes in particular are one of the fastest growing causes of traffic crashes in Missouri, increasing by more than 30%. And distracted driving is the most commonly observed risky behavior on Missouri roadways. So knowing that, and knowing how our employees are out on the road doing various job duties every single day, and knowing that we always make a continuous effort to improve the safety of those employees out on the road, along with the motorists, we had a desire to provide advanced notifications to everyone every time. So everybody that's out on the road, they get a notice every time that we're out there as well. And that no obstacles such as curves, hills, etc. will stand in our way. So the tool that was developed or that we implemented for this reason were real-time digital warnings. So essentially the way it works is every time our emergency response operators turn on their lights, their emergency lights, it sends a notification to people who have in-car, like in-dash technology or the Waze app on their phones. It sends them a notification that we are out there. So to pay attention, look for us. So the details behind this, we've been doing this in 2 of our districts, so the Kansas City district and the St. Louis district. And they're utilizing 2 different technologies, so we're evaluating and comparing the benefits of both. But on the Kansas City side of the state, we currently have 33 devices on some of our fleet. And then on the St. Louis side, we have 22 devices with 20 more planned to go in later in the next coming months. So some of the benefits of this technology is that it improves safety. So this advanced notification of ER vehicles and personnel will help nearby motorists be alert and be prepared to move over and reduce the likelihood of those secondary crashes. It saves money because it lessens the reliance on external signs such as our DMS boards as more motorists use in-car navigation. And then it also saves work and time, that no additional efforts need to be made by either the ER operator or the TMC operator to send any real-time digital alerts to traveling motorists. Some of the challenges that we have experienced, so we implemented this spring of 2019. So some of the challenges that we've had, and I wouldn't even really consider them major challenges, it's just not being able to have the ability to be able to figure out how many people we have impacted with this, meaning how many ways notifications have actually been issued to the driving public. We've tried to gather that information, but we haven't had very much success gathering that. And then also just getting additional devices installed to workload, obviously the COVID restrictions. And here at MoDOT, we implemented a shared work program that took place for 12 weeks over the summer, where we were down to some reduced work hours every week for 12 weeks for people. So some results and next steps of where we are with this. So far, when looking at 1 year before implementation and 1 year after, and this is specifically in the St. Louis district, we've seen that there's been a 40% reduction in our hits of those ER vehicle collisions with third parties. So we've gone from 5 down to 3. And then also this innovation was an innovations winner in our annual MoDOT Innovations Challenge, and it received the Director's Safety Award, which is one of the top honors on the Innovation Challenge. And we just recently announced that we're going to be expanding this technology, these devices, to additional fleet, and that fleet's going to be to our autonomous TMAs, to our TMAs, so the truck-mounted attenuators. And we have approximately 400 or so of those TMAs across the state. So we're working through the details on that, but we're excited about the additional expansion for this technology and device. So with that, thank you all again for allowing me the opportunity to present to you today. And are there any questions?
Well, Ashley, we'll save the questions to the very end, but please feel free to enter those questions for Ashley through the chat box. But congratulations on winning that Director's Award, Ashley, and thanks very much. Next up is Jamie Young. Jamie is the Winter Operations Manager with the Colorado Department of Transportation. And he's also a meteorologist with 20 years in highway maintenance operations. Take it away, Jamie.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction. Thank you to the organizers for having me. Before I start here, just the little background here. My involvement in this project is really from the operations side. I'm not much of a data expert by any sense of the imagination, but really want to just share our experience with crowdsourced data and how that's just opened up all kinds of possibilities that we're excited to pursue going forward. So currently we are pulling three versions of crowdsourced data. We're paying for INRIX data, and we're using that to generate travel time predictions on our variable message boards across the state, and also using that to make adjustments to our variable speed limits. We've made a big push for increasing the variable speed limit signs, especially in the Mountain Corridor I-70, and we really rely on this data heavily to help us adjust those values based on conditions and what actual travel is doing. We're also using the Here Live traffic data for our traffic operations dashboard, and this dashboard I'll talk more about in a second. And then we're also getting the Waze traffic alerts, which is also populating that traffic operations dashboard. So this is really our biggest resource for crowdsourced data currently is this traffic operations dashboard. This is partnered with Esri to build this for us. It does have a lot of functionality. It's all scalable, so depending on what geographical region you're focused in, it will scale the information and the alerts to that area based on the map view. So on the map view, we have the Here Live traffic data and then the Waze traffic alerts. We're also pulling a lot of information from our travel page, VMS boards, live cameras, and then our traffic operations centers are taking on more and more of the dispatch responsibilities for all our resources, and so we're using a lot of AVL data on this dashboard to show where our courtesy patrols are, our heavy tow partners, and our maintenance forces are located. And really the value here has been that we're getting these traffic alerts for maybe debris on the highway or accidents or crashes. We're able to kind of confirm that information via our web cameras, and then use that AVL data to identify the nearest resources and get them dispatched in a real timely manner. And kind of the anecdotal conclusion here is that we've had a significant decrease in our incident response time, and we're estimating that to be about a 10-minute reduction in the total detection and response time, which is a pretty significant, we feel that's a pretty significant improvement in the level of service we're providing to the public, and also our ability to clear traffic or clear debris, keep traffic moving. And so that situational awareness for our operations and maintenance staff is really big. And we are, that INRIX data is really helping us provide more accurate and timely traveler information for people traveling on the interstate corridors especially. This has really mostly been a pilot project that has moved into something that we're using daily in our operations. That's part of the daily workflow for all our traffic operations center operators, is to have that up on their screens and monitor that. And it's really kind of opened our eyes to the possibilities of what we could do, especially hearing what other states are doing with this data. So we're pretty keen to keep incorporating this into our daily workflow and really kind of push this out for statewide use. It's primarily been used in the Denver metro area, but really it's gaining traction with all our other stakeholders outside of CDOT as well, with the State Patrol. And we're always looking at ways to improve how we can interface with the public with our messaging, and we feel that especially for the mountain corridor of I-70 that there's a lot of opportunities here to provide better information on the public-facing side on our CoTrip travel information page. We're really keen to incorporate more road friction data and kind of researching some opportunities that are coming, that are being developed, and along those lines, really looking at how we could use crowdsourced data to develop better kind of level of service metrics for our snowplow operations. And along those lines, we're really interested in having better snowplow dynamic routing to avoid congestion and keep those plows moving, keep those plow cycle times low. Again, to maximize kind of the level of service we can provide to the public, and anything we can do to keep those plows from sitting in traffic. And especially as we look more to using this as a dispatching tool, we're keen to develop that that capability so that we're dispatching more via text and smartphone devices instead of radio. And we're excited about that opportunity for incident management, especially. We've done some other things with Esri along these lines that have been incorporated into that dashboard, really like operational readiness for storm events. We're tracking all of our avalanche incidents and data, and again, that incident reporting is something that we're looking to improve upon. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Kevin, and take questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. It'll be interesting to see how the operational dashboard evolves through the EDC 6 program. So participants, please enter any questions you have for Jamie through our chat box. Up next is Gene Donaldson. Gene is a Traffic Management Center Operations Manager with the Delaware Department of Transportation. He is currently leading an effort to develop a multimodal AI transportation management and control system. But today we'll speak about crowdsourced maintenance at DelDOT. All yours, Gene.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to, I manage the Department's Transportation Management Program, and we refer to it now as the Integrated Transportation Management System. And a big part of the way we operate is control, monitoring, and information. So on the information side, we have developed a DelDOT app, which you can download from Google Play, and so on, and an interactive map on the web. The DelDOT app has got multiple layers on it. It actually was designed so I and my staff can see that most of the things we need to see anywhere we can get a phone connection, and we just made the decision to push it out to the public. The other thing I have my own software development team. So we build a lot of interfaces to a variety of systems that do the control and monitoring. In the app, we've also built a application that is called Report a Road Condition. If you click on that, then you can send to DelDOT anything you see out on the system, any concerns you have, and so forth. All of those messages come into the TMC, and they also go to our community relations group, public relations. And so they are reassigned throughout the department, coming through us and through public relations. And anything that we can handle as part of our duties as running the transportation management system, then we will handle. Waze is a partner. And we've added the Waze information as a layer on our app and on our website. What we have done, though, is we looked at the information coming from Waze, and we built filters because we could see certain data was old, or we didn't feel it had enough information. So we've built filters that feed the information, and then we put it out to different levels of things. We also, with the pothole information from Waze, we built an interface that brings all that together, sorts it by the area yards, and then once a week we send that list automatically to the area yards, which helps us to keep on top of potholes. The big thing that we're working on now is the next level of my goal is, before I retire again, is to actually implement a truly predictive and adaptive transportation management system. And so that system will take in a variety of information and from Waze, and we're looking at other sources for information. But what's being developed is, along with Waze reports, we want to use that data. How accurate are they? And so we're going to rate the data and then integrate it into all of our other data, meaning if we see 3 reports from a location, we'll weight it to that, and so on. And so the big thing we're trying to do is the AI system will then automatically adjust traffic signals, reroute traffic, change signs, make the notifications need to be made, and keep our technicians involved. My philosophy is the amount of stuff we're looking at, even in Delaware, is thousands of things, and no human being can do it. So the tools we're building will allow us to have a more efficient system, plus be able to operate it better. The other things is I've been interested in crowdsourcing for several years, and where can we take it to the next level? So with the AI project, we've also talked to Twitter and some others. Dealing with a company in Delaware that this is their specialty, is crowdsourcing. We did a test a couple years ago for the state fair, and we watched the comments that were coming in, or the system watched the comments coming in about the state fair, looking for what they were saying about DelDOT, how traffic was moving, and so on. We feel we can actually implement that into a system that is actually looking at a variety of sources that provides us information that we can use to do a variety of things. Then we also want to be, like you see more and more of, as your phone is, you went to the restaurant, how was the restaurant? we want to be able to interject ourselves into providing information. So we have a big project coming up. If we see or the system sees vehicles going into that system, then can we send information to them to pre-warn them or provide them information? So that's where we're at. We're going to continue working on it, but stay tuned for we now call it AI ITMS, and thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Some pretty exciting stuff coming from your AI ITMS, and something that we need to kind of continue to follow. Friendly reminder, please ask questions for Gene in the chat pod. So we're halfway through the rapid fire. And up next, I have the pleasure to introduce a member of the Crowdsourcing National Implementation Team, Colby Fortier-Brown. Colby is a traffic and ITS engineer with the Maine DOT. So go ahead, Colby, jump right in there.
Hey, thanks, Ralph. Hey, everybody. My name's Colby. I work at Maine DOT, and I'm going to talk just quickly about a couple of representative examples of why crowdsourcing makes good business sense, at least for us. So to start, one of the reasons that we use it is to increase coverage and reduce overall response time. So these maps together, when you look at them, are pretty telling as far as what some of the limitations of physical hardware can be. So you can see on the left we have layers of our ITS network. We started not too long ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, kind of doing more mass deployments, and so we're relatively far behind as far as our coverage. But here on the right, you can see here's our 10-year crash history with 1 or more serious injuries, and it's pretty clear that there's a lot more space that we really want to and need to be able to cover in order to do that. That we find that as we move out, things get expensive. The maintenance is always costly. Anybody that has to work with that knows. Even just putting out the devices can be, if you're looking at maybe $5,000 for a camera or for a nice streaming camera, and then you have to pay to have it hooked up to electricity or have battery power with solar, and then you have to worry about the communications cost, whether that's recurring or something that you connect up yourself. So it really can get expensive. But then if you're able to look at something like Waze we're a partner of, and we're able to archive a lot of their events, and it's a free partnership, really the only cost to archive those is just the staff development time. It can be a lot to begin with, but it still is dwarfs in comparison to how much it might cost to put out some of this hardware. So you can see, too, beyond just the cost of putting things out, you can see how effective it is to, now this is only 1 year of Waze events that were reported and filtered down, but it looks a lot closer to this serious injury map here on the right, and that's something that makes things a lot easier. It helps so that we can get event information as quickly as possible and respond well. So moving on top of some of the cost savings or technology gap filling provided by using crowdsourced data, we also find that there's a lot of value and efficiency-based value business case for actually crowdsourcing. For us, we were able to crowdsource information from our maintenance crews to make up for staff resource limitations. So to start, here's a picture of our TMC. We have 3 operators on during the day usually and 2 at night, and that's for the whole state of Maine. So as you can imagine, it can get pretty hectic, especially during winter storms or when we have events going on. And back in 2018, we noticed a bottleneck around specifically road condition reporting information that was being collected in our ATMS system. So we decided to use crowdsourcing techniques to streamline those processes. So just a quick intro to what our ATMS is. We use an ATMS that we share with New Hampshire and Vermont called Compass ATMS. It was provided by Southwest Research, and this is what we use for all of our TMC operations, so device activation, and a lot of time even incident detection. So this app that I'm going to talk about is the crowdsourcing that we use. So every morning and throughout the storms and throughout the day, our crews will report in over the radio, or used to report in over the radio, road conditions, weather, and then temperature, both of the pavement and of the ambient air. And we ended up developing an app because we noticed that it was really overwhelming our operators to have to write this down on pieces of paper and then copy it down into the actual system later in the day. So as we were able to deploy it and see that the crews were willing and open to entering in all this information in the app instead of having it flow through radio, it provided a lot of extra value. You can see here on the map what type of view our operators might see when that comes in, and it really gives them good perspective about where to expect things next and what kind of the current conditions are, so they can be in pretty good constant communication with the crews and so that the crews can know what the other crews are doing. So the app's been through one winter of field testing and it's ready for full deployment. We just did half of the deployment just a couple of days ago, and we're hoping to actually move this to in-service and out-of-service in 2020 to 2021 because of the success we had. So just to go back for those examples, some of the costs and benefits that we find for crowdsourcing in general. So some of the costs, app development for something like that, that one cost us about $40,000, and we're looking at another 12 to 15 to make things a little bit more easily integratable on Apple devices. Staff time, again, like I mentioned, for Waze, for the development, integration, and maintenance of that. But then you can lift up a lot of that hardware cost, and it kind of takes away some of the cost, or you can budget out in the future so you don't have to worry about putting things out immediately, even though it might provide better information spot by spot. And then some of the benefits, it was able to provide our TMC better focus, gave us new capabilities that better serve the travelers. So we were able to see a lot more information with the Waze and provide more information out. Our road weather data got a lot better, both temporally and spatially, and we were able to get a lot more information from the crews more regularly, and we're really looking forward to seeing how that moves in the future. And it more than doubled what we're able to look at, remembering back to the ITS slide. So, and then on top of the incident detection, that really provides a lot of value for us. So that's what I had. Feel free to ask any questions in the pod. I'll be happy to answer them after.
Thank you, Colby. Please type in your questions for Colby in the chat pod. So far, we heard from 3 state DOTs. Now, how about a regional planning agency? Next up is Thomas Bamonte. Thomas is a senior program manager with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, which represents the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Thomas is a Northwestern University School of Law graduate and works on the automated vehicle pilot programs and related transportation technology and planning issues. All yours, Thomas.
Great. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about our adventures in crowdsourcing in Dallas-Fort Worth. I want to start with talking about kind of the cultural challenges and opportunities in making the business case for crowdsourcing, kind of sharing our experience, talk about what we've done, and provide a brief look ahead for EDC 6 and beyond. So this is inspired by the 5 stages of grief, processing grief. We have identified 3 stages of kind of the human factors when it comes to building the business case. And the first is as an MPO, but I think this applies for anyone who's trying to innovate. You get a lot of who are you, why are you here, you know, kind of this cultural pushback when you're trying to bring change. And we also found, and as my bio says, I'm a recovering lawyer actually new to this space, I was struck by how siloed incident response, emergency response is from the transportation sector. So we dealt with a lot of institutional silos where, you know, folks would say, well, we haven't heard from anybody from transportation for a long time, or the only time we hear from transportation is when they call us up and, you know, want something. So a big part of what we did was literally go out and sit down and talk to people, listen to people, start getting engaged in conferences involving emergency responders, and that kind of humble approach of listening, learning, and asking respectful questions, I think really helped. The second stage is once you're in the door and you start having substantive discussions is how to respond to the, you know, crowdsourcing, it's crappy, it's from the crowd, can't be trusted, you know, it's not perfect. And what we settled on with something like this was to point out again respectfully that already folks are relying on the crowd for 911 calls, and we stacked up Waze against 911, and we didn't over-promise about Waze. We just said, folks, you're relying on the crowd for your 911 calls, and Waze basically gives you in DFW access to another 15,000 daily 911 calls. And and I have got a question. Can people hear me? Will someone confirm that? My presentation has disappeared.
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
We
Yeah,
can.
Okay. I will have to go by memory then because on my screen, there it is. So as we just did a common sense, you're relying on crowdsourcing, and you are Waze is a way to supplement it, and that helps soothe some of those concerns. Third phase is, well, okay, it's interesting, but what can it do? And we went out and actually found instances where we would call 911 on a roadway incident, and then we go back to the Waze app. And in this case, for example, we found that in Waze, the earliest report was an hour before a 911 call, and there were multiple confirmations of a pretty serious roadway incident. And again, this was pretty compelling evidence in real life terms that people could understand and helped us make that business case. So that allowed us, and this is our summary of our efforts, what we did is we used small challenge grants. So we encouraged our transportation partners at the various cities in the region to get into the Waze Connected Citizens program, start becoming familiar with the data and getting comfortable with that, and we've had some real success there. Some of them have turned into real industry leaders and have been featured by Waze in global webinars, et cetera. The second is my organization has a 911 section. We actually administer 42 911 centers in kind of the outlying part of the DFW region. And through that process of collaboration and kind of patient persistence, we were able to get Waze integration in 42 911 centers in the region. So that's complete as well. And now we're partnering with TxDOT. We've added resources and energy to a major ATC MTD program, and we're going to work with TxDOT as one of the sub-projects to do this Waze 911 integration in the 4 core cities in the region along the I-30 corridor. And that has kicked off, and we've already got those cities doing some prep work. So our goal, and we anticipate reaching it hopefully by this time next year, is to have our entire region with Waze 911 system integration. So what we're looking at, we're already looking ahead, and we realize that what's happening is we have a new crowd, really smart vehicles, hundreds of thousands, millions of them crawling around our system gathering lots of data. And it's a source of wonderful information about the infrastructure, about vehicle behaviors and traffic operations. And so we got to build on what we've done with in this case, Waze, and think about how we're going to interact with the crowd. So very happy to report that we facilitated conversations between some automated vehicle trucking firms that have located in Dallas-Fort Worth with the Texas Department of Transportation. And we're working forward on a program where when those automated trucks encounter infrastructure challenges, potholes, bad striping, object on road, et cetera, they'll send a snippet of the relevant sensor data to TxDOT maintenance. So maintenance can identify, prioritize, and hopefully get out there and respond promptly. And we're in early stage discussions, I can only say that, with a major OEM about perhaps extending that into the automobiles. And then our goal is building a crowdsourced vehicle data infrastructure where our transportation partners are sharing data with the OEMs and the AV developers and vice versa. They work on optimizing vehicle behavior. We optimize the roadway. In this very optimistic forecast, that improves vehicle operation and safety and the transportation experience, and that happy travelers means happy voters and taxpayers, which provides support for our initiatives. So this is kind of the virtuous cycle that we hope to build on this crowdsourcing framework that we've set up. And finally, that means big changes to traffic ops. You know, it's for decades, it's been kind of on this NASA closed system. You know, some of the previous speakers have talked about that. You have very expensive sensor infrastructure, kind of a closed shop environment, kind of NASA-like control centers. Now it's crowdsourced data. That whole ecosystem gives you new ways to communicate with your users, and your traffic ops, you're no longer in a superior position when it comes to information. You've got to be one of the crowd, play nice, play smartly, and again, not think in terms of closed systems or silos, but in networks and the kind of productive win-win data infrastructure partnerships that I just portrayed. And with that, I am complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Great to hear that crowdsourcing offers a strong business case at the regional level. From the regional level, now to the county level. Our next presenter, Brian Legree, is the Passage Traffic Management Center Manager with the Lake County, Illinois Division of Transportation. He recently led the redesigning of the Passage system for their smartphone app and will speak today on Lake County's business case for crowdsourcing. Take it away, Ryan.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, and thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Legree. I'm currently the TMC Manager for Lake County Division of Transportation. Today I'm filling in for my colleague, Justin Effinger, who is off giving another presentation, so I will do my best, and I'm going to talk fast. Okay, let's go next slide here. All right, so a quick background of Lake County and where we're located. We are the northeasternmost county in the state with a population of over 700,000, traveling public nearly 2 million before COVID hit daily. So our ITS system called Lake County Passage is connected over 638 traffic signals, 415 PTZ cameras on over 290 miles of fiber. So like a lot of you, we collect a lot of data. And as most of you know, the raw data we get from our traffic signals and detection and counters only give us part of the picture. While it's great data to have, sometimes it's hard to make these decisions based on that data. And this is where crowdsourcing data came into play for us. So crowdsourcing plays two major roles for us. Supplementing our CAD data, our computer-aided dispatch data from the various police departments through Lake County, and also gathering travel time data for traffic flow analysis. Waze could help us solve both of these. Several years ago, we joined the Waze CCP program, the Connected Citizens program, which is now, I believe, called Waze for Cities, with the intent on giving and receiving incident data. We wanted to give our CAD data and our roadwork data, both of which we knew was good data and good information to give Waze. And in return, we would get their user data to help us supplement our CAD data for incidents, especially in areas where we didn't have CAD information. So we worked with our system integrator to get Waze incident information into our ATMS. This will allow the operators to see Waze data alongside the CAD data. And we found a few things. Number one, it helped us confirm iffy event info or incident information. If we didn't have a lot of information from our CAD partners, the Waze events helped us confirm some of that. Also, we noticed that if there were several of the same kind of Waze incidents in the same area, we found that kind of helped us confirm incidents or problems in the area as well. And then lastly, Waze events, we noticed, as one of the other gentlemen mentioned, that they tend to come in a little bit faster than the police sometimes, police CAD data. So we found ourselves finding out about incidents even sometimes before the police did. So taking it a step further, around the same time, we were looking at using the probe data to help us with traffic analysis. So after some trouble with Google traffic route data and the high cost associated with that, we caught wind of another agency using Waze travel time data. After some digging, we found that you could fairly easily harvest the travel time data from the Waze traffic tool that's free to all members. From that time, Justin, our signal engineer, started building out a bunch of travel time routes that are key for us. And I started building a program that could parse and archive and alert us for heavy congestion. As a result, we have over 400 travel time routes and a travel times poller that actively polls those routes every 2 minutes, archives the data for future use, and alerts the TMC operators if and when there is a route that is considered congested by our calculations. We have been collecting this data since 2017, and it has proven very useful for us in comparing data against traffic trends during the COVID-19 stay-at-home order. Justin's been able to prepare weekly reports to show off traffic volumes and travel times and how they've been behaving during the whole COVID time frame. And a shameless plug here, the Waze travel time poller that we built in-house has been open sourced and is on GitHub for anyone to use. And I'd be happy to help anyone get started with that. Just let me know. You can contact me. The travel time information was also integrated into our ATMS system, which now gives us the ability to share travel times on message boards, post them to our website, and alert users of heavy congestion during incidents or weather events. This has been truly helpful for our operation and somewhat of a game changer. From there, we spent some time working on our newly acquired ATSPM contract with TrapOp to integrate Waze travel time data into Waze travel times with SPM data. This allows our engineers to look at traffic signal data, phase timing, chord splits, actuations, PED, all compared with travel time info from Waze. This tool allows our engineers to have a complete tool to do their signal studies, corridor studies, and ultimately track any changes they make to see how they perform over time. Future projects will look to do some adaptive signal control, mostly during weather events, or weather responsive, as we call it, based on travel times we're seeing from Waze. This will link our ATMS and signal systems so we can command pattern changes based on travel time info we have. There's also some future considerations given to how we'll implement this with construction information. Since we have the ability to collect and show real-time travel time info, we can alert drivers using our message boards, smartphone apps, website that travel times are higher due to construction during this time. In addition, we're looking at using our message boards to provide travel time recommendations to the driver, something tollways do frequently and something we're trying to tackle on arterial roads. We want to be able to say our time on Route X will take 5 minutes via this route, 4 minutes via this route, etc. Lastly, we wanted to talk about how crowdsourcing has impacted our traffic signal analysis and costs associated with that. Because of the addition of crowdsourced data, we're able to complete SCAT process in-house and are able to pay for our ATSPM system over a 5-year contract period utilizing the money that was normally appropriated toward our yearly SCAT studies, and over a 5-year period saved the county $17,300. We also have the ability to do SCAT studies more frequently and have bigger data sets. On the screen are annual benefits from the 4 previous SCAT contracts with a benefit to cost ratio considering only the first year of annual benefit. I'm not saying that we'll get the same benefit as the 4-year contracts combined in 1 year, but in theory, combining corridors in multiple contracts into 1 year and doing them in-house would yield a higher annual benefit and higher benefit to cost ratio. We will have the ability to report on these. We also have the ability to report on these improvements more frequently to our board members, which they use for their newsletters. That's all I have for the presentation. I know I went fast, but if you have any questions, let me know, and thank you for your time.
Brian, thank you very much. It's some really impressive stuff that you guys are doing in Lake County, Illinois. Hey, we finally made it. We finally had our final presenter, and that is Mr. Ed Cox. Ed is the Engineering Director of Traffic Management at the Indiana Department of Transportation. He will share their business case for crowdsourcing, which spans nearly a dozen uses of one data source. Over to you, Ed.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. I'll try to go equally as fast since I'm the last one speaking here and get to some Q&A. Just to give you a little background on me, I am an operations engineer at heart. I've done almost 30 years with Indiana DOT in traffic operations. And in the crowdsourced world, actually it's more probe data that I've been working with. We've been in it since about 2011. When you're looking at the probe data side of it, I'm going to talk about one. We're purchasing INRIX right now, but anybody's got questions, I've actually compared that data set to multiple other data sets over the years, and can give you the pros and cons of both. For those of you maybe new to the probe data side of it, a couple ways you can go at it. Indiana just purchases raw data because I am very lucky. I have Purdue University in my backyard, and we do a lot of research together, so I'm able to take raw data. And with my own IT staff as well as the Purdue research side of it, we're building our own tools. For those of you who aren't that lucky to have that, most all of these companies will also sell you the tools in suites and packages. In fact, the humorous side is many of them will resemble the things we built here in Indiana. We try to share everything we do with states and vendors to try and let everybody have the same benefit. Quickly, I'll say, just to give you an idea of scale, if you do want to take this on yourself, currently, right now, we've got Indiana's interstates are broken up in about 6,600 segments. Our OS routes or non-interstates are about 34,000 segments. We're downloading all of those every 60 seconds. Looking at about 3.6 terabytes a year for storage. And quality of data, I could go into it. We've done a lot of studies, but easiest way to sum it up, we have less than a minute of data loss per day per segment overall. And we compared a lot of this head-to-head with a lot of different sources. So nice thing is we're built to where we can use any one or multiple sources of data now. And you can see to the right, there's a lot of things you can do with the probe data side of it. I could talk about all of these, but I've only chosen a couple for the 5 minutes I'll be talking to you today. So I'll go on and get to that. One of the things in my job, in Indiana, we time about 2,500 traffic signals centrally here. With a staff of about 7 people. In the past, I also had staff of analysts, did floating car studies, did a lot of the analysis by hand. The nice thing about probe data, we've been able to basically eliminate all those jobs and turn them into IT jobs for one. But the key we found with the probe data, there were 2 things that we could do that we really liked, or I guess 3. Number one, instead of getting a couple passes on a retime, in maybe midday and a couple in the morning, a couple in the evening, I could literally overlay hours, days, weeks of data on top of each other and see before and after studies. The graphs you see to the right, this is just one study that we did in the city of Kokomo, Indiana. We looked at the red line represents before we did timings, the green line is after. We were able to track by the different time of day plans that I had for each of the signals on the corridor and actually see the travel time savings to the motorist across each of those times of day and do overall calculations of travel time savings. Just for example, one corridor in Indiana we saved 116,000 hours of travel time and an estimated savings of about $2.75 million for our local community motorists annually, and also reduced the CO2 the equivalent of 21.5 thousand per year. The other thing we did that was kind of nice is we've always traditionally done retimings based on just every 3 to 5 years. We tried for 4 years. A lot of that was based on just what we observed and what we thought. The probe data has really come in handy in letting us know where we're having travel time reliability. The graph in the middle, the little bar graph, was where we just ran basically a query that we had set up to look at travel time reliability across all of my signal systems and helped us rank where we needed to go. So we've been trying to be a little more dynamic in where we go to do our retimings. In addition to that, improved traveler information. A lot of you guys may already be doing this. I don't know. Actually, I can say now we've got more than 400 individual calculations we're running as of this morning. We just turned on a bunch more. We're utilizing probe data across the state in areas where I would traditionally never have had sensors or been able to afford sensors. And we are calculating travel times from Indianapolis to Louisville, Indy to Chicago, basically, long segments of rural interstate. We're able to calculate those. Doing it all in-house, found it to be very reliable with no equipment deployed in very long segments of it. So next, I'm going to jump in here really quick, just a quick business case for you guys. Here's where we're at. In Indiana, we made a decision about 3 years ago that we were going to deploy ITS devices at every interchange in the state. And with that, we were looking at, do we do probe data? Do we, deploy, actual field equipment? We looked at both, and what we found was it's a combination. So we are going to deploy cameras at every interchange, DMSs at nearly every interchange, but the count stations, instead of doing the 650 that it would take if we deployed hardware and equipment out there, we're just going to stay with the probe data side and deploy 2 per link between each interchange just to help us with count data, because probe data only gives you speed. Just some quick calculations we did on cost benefit. That alone saved us about $28 million in infrastructure deployment costs and about $750,000 a year in communication and service costs. Just to kind of give you a feel for it, our cost per year for Indiana, again, just straight raw data, we're less than $500,000 a year for the entire state coverage. The things we also have done, just quickly, we have developed a tool that we utilize in various capacities to detect incidents along rural sections of roadway, basically by comparing adjacent segments of the probe data and looking for differences in speed. It's not perfect. It relies heavily on the number of probes, which fortunately has increased over the years. It's actually become very reliable for us here in the last couple of years. It's been a really great tool. We call it Delta Speed. I'll be glad to dive deeper into that and talk to anyone that is interested in knowing more about it. With that said, that was a very quick, about a 6-minute run through of something I can usually talk about for 40 to 45 minutes. So if you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer those either during this question and answer period or even after this is over through email or however you want to contact me. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ed, and appreciate you bringing in the cost savings into the equation there of what you guys have done in Indiana DOT. And I also want to thank each of our presenters today. So right now we're going to take a 2-minute pause with a little trivia and then shift over to a question and answer portion of this call. So as you can see below the presentation screen, we have a poll question, and in that, I want you to answer this first poll question: will the Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar series end with EDC 5? There we have 3 different answers. First one, actually 4 different answers. First one, Adventures in Crowdsourcing will rock on through EDC 6. Second, tears dampen my cheeks as I contemplate the end of the Adventures in Crowdsourcing series. And third, I'm too parched after the rapid fire presentation to even respond. I see where we're kind of leaning a little bit more on that first one. And give it a couple more. And looks like 82% of you are on the right track. We're going to continue on with our Adventures in Crowdsourcing. You probably heard it from the third slide that we had, that we're on for another round of everyday counts sessions with our Crowdsourcing for Advancing Operations initiative. So with that, how about we move to our next question? And that is, we know every agency highlighted today has benefited from crowdsourced data. How do you recall which agencies expanded their geographic coverage for actively monitoring their transportation system? And we have represented all the agencies that made presentations from Missouri, Colorado, Delaware, Maine, our regional rep, North Central Texas COG, our county rep, Lake County, Illinois DOT, and Indiana DOT. And I believe this is a multiple answer type question here. Okay, as you can see, the majority were correct with the Maine DOT on how they were able to kind of expand their coverage, throughout the whole state. But pretty much all these agencies did the same, were able to expand their geographic coverage statewide. So, or even throughout their whole region. Some, Lake County, for instance, although they targeted mostly on the arterials, but there were some areas of the county that it would never have had the infrastructure in place before. But you can't go wrong. Everybody had a correct answer there, so we appreciate your response to this particular poll question. So why don't we go ahead and move into close the poll, and we'll again thanks again to all of our presenters today, and we're going to conclude with our question and answering session. So what we have as our first question, I want to address this to Jamie Yount with the Colorado DOT. How do you address the challenges of seeking technical data like road friction data from crowdsourcing? And we appreciate Mark.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, that's a great question. It's like currently we're deploying sensors on maintenance vehicles, and then also we're putting mobile friction sensors, mobile RWIS sessions on the regional bus network to really try and expand the scope of how much road friction data we can collect. And it's a lot of data, and it doesn't. One of the biggest challenges is kind of trying to correlate it to the stationary data we get from our RWIS stations, and knowing which one to trust. But we're really excited about this this company that we've been talking to called NERA, and they're partnering with, the company's called NERA Dynamics, and they're partnering with OEM manufacturers here in the United States to really use that connected vehicle platform, and any sort of all-wheel drive vehicle will be, giving a friction measurement as it goes down the road. So we're really tracking on that, and pretty excited about what that might be able to do for us from a crowdsourced perspective. But we're pretty in our infancy maybe of the mobile crowdsourced friction data usage, and I think there's going to be a lot more to come for us with that.
Okay, great. How about Gene? There's a question for you in our chat pod, and that one involves what data fusion or data processing challenges have you faced prior to feeding all the AI? And has any lessons learned yet? And we appreciate Haley Townsend for asking this question.
Thank you. I think the key for us is, as I said, for years, I've been doing this a long time, we used to write specs to go build systems and so forth. Since I've had my own software development team, and also we've integrated how we do business into how Dell.IT and State IT, who I meet with every Thursday. And we have created a partnership. What we've done with data over the years is we've done a couple things in that the data we get in from the system, and it's a lot of data, we also make that available to, we got so many requests for it. You can sign up and we push out JSON feeds of the data they're looking for, and so they can take it live. We're also, because we've saved so much data and the department and others use it so much, planning and everything else, we're now moving data into working on the Google Cloud and GCP. And so that will allow people to access data more readily. So a big part of what we do is managing data. And so I think, but the key, I believe, is it's just daily business to us. It's our people are responsible for it. And so having my own development team has really helped.
Okay, thank you, Gene. I want to have a question from Mohammed Musa, and I'm going to direct this to Thomas Belmonte over at North Central Texas COG. What is the timeline for the implementation or use of the crowdsourced data in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Great, thanks for that question. In 2017, we tried to show some leadership by joining the Connected Citizens program as the COG. We made that available through our policy board so the word got out. Fort Worth kind of started the parade. They joined in 2017. We used 2018. We collaborated with Waze headquarters and the Waze Map Editor Network in Texas and did a series of training sessions. And about then, we started discussions with our colleagues in COG 911 program and got them involved. 2019 was when most of the cities in the program tapped into the Waze Connected Citizens program. They reported that it took them basically a day to set up the feed. They used the out-of-the-box Esri tools. Some of them had trouble even spending the $25,000 challenge grant. They found it very easy to get aboard. And then we also started working. It took about a year for all 42 911 centers to be integrate the Waze data stream. So that was that ended. That one-year process ended in June of this year. And the TxDOT collaboration along I-30, the 911 centers along I-30, we've had preliminary discussions, but based on past experience, once the contracts and paperwork are in order, we foresee that as being a 6-month process. So I would say, and since it was folks like me who haven't spent the years in this area, it probably took us a little longer as we were figuring out that, basic things like transportation isn't responsible for cleaning up crashes, and having to realize that we had to find another vertical, namely the emergency response community, and work with them. So you can learn from our stumbling around and get this done probably much more quickly.
Thank you, Thomas. And having Thomas on the call also brought along one of his colleagues, Natalie Betker, and I want to ask the question directed more at Jamie Yount of the Colorado DOT. Do you have the breakdown of incident detection versus response time savings?
We do have the ability to get those to calculate those response times, but we haven't done it, and so it's mostly from anecdotal kind of talking to the operators. We've actually made so many changes in how we're operating that it might be a little bit tough to quantify right now. For instance, we used to do all our dispatching and maintenance forces through the Colorado State Patrol, and so just that communication chain was much longer, and so just moving that dispatch side to those traffic operations centers it was a pretty big savings in itself, and that was along the same time frame that we started using that traffic operations dashboard. So it's a great question. It's certainly something we're looking to really try and quantify moving forward, especially talking about a business case and implementing this in a bigger scale in our operations. Thanks.
And this is Thomas. This may be of interest to the group. As part of our TxDOT collaboration and building out the integration along I-30 between Fort Worth and Dallas, part of that project will include TTI coming in and doing hopefully a close analysis of whether there are benefits and identifying opportunities for how these centers could perhaps better integrate the Waze data stream. And I also want to acknowledge that one thing, and I neglected to mention, was that we also integrated, like some of you have done, the Waze layer into our 511 system map. So that was another thing that was done in the 3-year period I covered.
Thanks, Thomas, for adding into with Jamie's comment there. In fact, a lot of great questions. In fact, I even have a question I want to throw out here to Colby. And with the Compass system, that's kind of working with adjacent states, especially New Hampshire and Vermont. How do they view the use of crowdsourcing data, and are they making the business case for themselves at the moment by seeing what's happening at Maine?
Yeah, all 3 states are using it at least to some extent. Some of the work, especially with the app, is one that's in development there and is only on, I guess, our leg of the system for the time being, but it will be something that all 3 states likely use at some point. We're all fairly reliant on Waze, whether that's internal to that system or external. Most of ours is external use of Waze, but I know maybe Vermont, it's tough to speak for another state, but I think they use a lot of it internal to Compass. And then we're all very reliant on probe data as well. So we have it built into that system where we can automatically program in what we call links for travel time signs so that we don't have to worry about putting out Bluetooth sensors and calibrating and making sure that everything is accurate and then moving them around. We can put it across parallel routes for construction projects and find a lot of benefit there, or see a lot of benefit opportunity there, but use it primarily on our interstate corridors. But so I think there is a lot of functionality that we're able to share between the 3 states, and a lot of the future functionality that we're hoping for is going to be really cooperative in that on that use case.
Perfect. Thanks, Colby, for answering my question there. Got another question for Haley Townsend. And this is directed to Ed Cox at the Indiana Department of Transportation. Ed, what are the approximate benefits so far in terms of incident detection?
Okay, so we developed a tool quite some time ago for the incident detection side of it, and we've utilized it. We've used it in a lot of large incidents and things like that, but we had not fully incorporated into our TMCs due to our age of our software, our ATMS software. We are in the process right now of changing our ATMS software and bringing that front and center. We think, from what we've seen, it has brought us eyes to see what's going on in areas where we traditionally have had little to no idea what was happening out in the field. So it has been of a great benefit to us in that area. My only downside is, again, getting it fully implemented, fully integrated for our operators.
Okay, thanks, Ed, on that answer. And I have another question, and I'm going to direct this to Ryan from Lake County. Does Lake County Division of Transportation tell the story, or what we like to call the operational story, with some of the activities that's happening and the savings based on your dashboards to the general public? And if so, how do they approach it? How do they do so?
Well, you're asking if some of the stuff that we mentioned today as far as cost savings and things like that, we announced that out to the public, you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, in the presentation we mentioned that, a lot of the stuff that we do gets forwarded onto our board, and then they really like to include that in their newsletters. And so a lot of the information, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about as far as cost savings get out that way. And then in addition, we have a very active communications department. So there's one actually, a liaison at our DOT, who does a really good job getting all the latest, best information out to the public on the various platforms. And so we get quite a bit of user engagement when they post stories or add things out that include information about cost savings or new programs, integration with our latest integration with TTS and Audi as far as giving information to them. So a lot of people get their information that way. And then of course our website and smartphone apps and everyone's on social media now. We post all that information out if we have good relevant information.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ryan, for your answer. Let's see. I don't see any other questions out there. And I want to thank Shelley Shaw. I know she was kind of triaging some of these questions for me, but some of you had your questions answered in the chat pod. Unfortunately, for some of you who are wondering where questions for Ashley Booster. Ashley had another commitment, so she had to drop off the line here. But why don't I go ahead and close out this particular webinar session and move on to our next talk a little bit about, and again, thanks to our presenters for the questions from the audience. But before we close, I want to bring to your attention a few items. First, our Everyday Counts 5th round landing page on the National Operations Center of Excellence website hosts the previous 9 FHWA webinars that we've conducted. We encourage you to go back, view, and listen to these sessions at your own convenience. Second, please sign up for the Crowdsourcing for Operations e-newsletter to hear about more of the upcoming Crowdsourcing for Operations events and read about peer agency experiences with crowdsourcing. The link is available on the FHWA Resource Links pod down on the, just underneath our presentation. And then third, we welcome you to attend the upcoming Everyday Counts Round 6 Summit. Traditionally, these summits took place by invitation, where only a few people were allowed to attend in various regions across the country. But and most of these people were kind of coordinated and associated with your State Transportation Innovation Council, otherwise known as the STIC. This year, the summit will be virtual and open to all who wish to attend. And it's not just for states. We're welcoming municipalities and regional agencies to attend as well. So if you'd like an invitation to attend the summit, please register for the Crowdsourcing newsletter, but also for the session that we have on here. And you can find that in the operations, Crowdsourcing for Operations links. And it may come up at, we have a third party involved in this registration process called LabCorp that we're working closely with the platform. So if you see that, don't be alarmed. Your registration will continue to go through to be part of our Everyday Counts summits. You'll find it very, very inviting and engaging activity to be a part of. So with that, we kind of come to a close. It looks like we may have about, I'll give back 10 minutes of your time. But I want to once again thank Ashley, Jamie, Jean, Colby, Thomas, Ryan, and Ed for sharing their agency's business case for crowdsourcing. Also want to thank Kevin and Vishali for their assistance in this webinar. But most of all, thanks to you all, of the participants who put forth the great questions and time to learn a little bit more about crowdsourcing for operations, and especially how to make that business case for crowdsourcing. We look forward to seeing everyone at EDC 6 Summit on December 8th, and also being part of our, as one of the states represented as part of the EDC 6 for the 2021 and 2022 Everyday Counts years that will be participating. So with that, again, my name is Ralph Volpe. Feel free to reach out to any of my colleagues, Greg Jones and James Collier, who's also co-leading this effort. And again, I want to put back our Crowdsourcing for Operations plug-in for December 8th. So we hope that you'll be able to attend this particular summit session. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.